Yes.
Yeah, I already 160 right there.
Get everything opened up. Get everybody up front. And while they're speaking, oh yeah. I think it's on. Yeah. All right. Thank everybody for coming here tonight for the public forum on this solar proposed in Cherokee County. Just kind of give you guys kind of what we're going to do tonight. I've asked both solar companies that's represented here tonight to come up here in a minute. We're going to give both of them 5 minutes apiece to tell the citizens of Cherokee County what they're proposing in Cherokee County. So this gives them the opportunity to tell you guys exactly what they're proposing. We don't for sure know. I know you guys don't for sure know. This is their opportunity. After they get done, if you signed in on the sheet up front, Jake's going to be my timekeeper. We're going to give everybody 3 minutes. We've got to put a time limit on this. We're not trying to silence you. We're not trying to limit you. We've got to have some kind of organization here. We're all going to be here until 2 o'clock in the morning. So bear with us. If we have time at the end, we'll circle back around. I think before we get started, something I'd like to touch on just briefly, if I can hold it together, because I see all your faces. Most everybody in this room has probably called me on the phone, and we have talked. I've spent 100 hours on the phone visiting with a lot of you people here and people that aren't here. Emotions run high, especially this time of year, elections. Everybody's upset. Things are hard. We get these deals. We're not totally informed. People's emotions are high, okay? The things that I've heard out of people's mouths concerning their neighbors, to be honest with you, has broken my heart. Mm-hmm. Cherokee County is better than this, okay? We can agree to disagree, but I can tell you I've talked to people that was pretty close to their neighbors, and I can assure you they will never speak again. So just use caution. I went out, we had a storm, 3 months ago approximately, did a lot of damage in the southwest part of the county. I went out with a machine, helped the county guys clear roads. There was a farm that got hit extremely hard. I went by there myself with a machine, and I can honestly tell you I left there with a huge smile. Because when I pulled in there was about 50 people in that barn willing to do anything. That's what it's about. Whatever comes of this, we'll figure that out later. But with the atmosphere of the country right now, everybody's emotions, I just caution you, life's better than that. Okay? Aaron or Barry, either one of you, I don't know who wants to come first. Barry's with Clearway Energy. They've got 5 minutes to kind of inform you guys what they're proposing, and then whenever they get done, we'll get Aaron up here.
Thanks very much. My name is Barry Matchett. Pardon me for the hoarse voice this evening. I'm joined by my colleague John Hadley. John's going to quickly describe, as Commissioner Moats just suggested, just describe what we're thinking. We're very grateful for the opportunity to come in and visit with you and answer questions. We'll answer any questions you may have. And so, John, you could describe where we are, and then I'd like to take a minute and walk you through the development process as we do it, and tell you about some of the things that we've heard as we've developed projects around the Midwest, so that hopefully it can answer some questions that you may have. And then, as I said, we're happy to answer any questions.
Thanks for having us. Again, my name is John Hadley. I did a lot of the leasing efforts with local landowners here. The project concentrated area, we have just around 2,400 total acres leased. Forgive me for not having the exact number, but it's in between those two. The majority, the biggest concentration of it is just south of Clem Road. I'm sure a lot of y'all know where the King property is, Leon King's land. He was one of the first to sign on with us. We do have some tracks that are further south than that, closer towards Highway 166, but they're a bit scattered. We're not exactly sure what that looks like for buildability's sake, but all of it contained in between 69 and Southeast 50th as an area, with, like I said, the vast majority of it being located right around Clem Road at north of Neutral. And the total buildable acres would look something like around 1,500 with the panels themselves. You lease more than that. Barry can get into that, but for setback requirements, EPA restrictions, wetland delineation, things like that, you end up having to lease quite a bit more than you're actually going to build on. So give you some sort of idea where the project area is.
So after, there are basically 3 steps in this process. We work with landowners to find suitable land, and you may ask the question, why Cherokee County? Well, Cherokee County happens to have fantastic transmission. The long history of industrial work in the county has resulted in, and you may or may not know this, but actually excellent energy infrastructure. As John just noted, most of the land that we are looking at is right around substations. So if you build an energy project, doesn't matter whether it's coal, gas, nuke, solar, wind, battery, you got to be able to put it in the grid so that it can be sent to everybody's homes. And so that's one of the reasons. The second thing is the skilled workforce in the county. So to this skilled workforce, once the land acquisition stage is done and the various permits are issued, we move into a construction period that's about 18 months long. We have between 200 and about 250 people that will be employed over the life of those 18 months installing the project. At the end, we get it energized, and during operations, we have round-the-clock staffing at the site for safety purposes, as well as certainly during the daytime when it's generating electricity to manage the energy dispatch into the grid. So that's something that, I know there are a lot of stories out there about solar projects that may not have full-time staff. We staff our projects full-time. And then at the end of life, the project is what we call in the industry decommissioned or deconstructed. And in every place that we have developed in the Midwest, the county and the landowners require us to decommission and return the land to the condition in which we leased it at the outset. For a solar project, again, as you may or may not know, you don't install a lot of concrete. This is not a wind project or a natural gas project where you're installing a lot of concrete foundations. You're actually driving piles into the ground. Those are easily removed. The solar racking system is easily removed, and the panels are simply unscrewed and taken off site. And so the land is restored to the condition in which our landowners leased it to us. And that's an obligation under not only the lease agreement, but I would encourage the county to require us to do that through what I'd like to talk about next, which is essentially an ordinance. We are very cognizant of the fact that many people are concerned about new energy development in the county. I would encourage you all as the county commissioners, and I appreciate the fact that you've had a pause, to give yourself some time to think through what an ordinance might look like that addresses community concerns and still allows the county to bring this type of energy development to the county in a safe and responsible way. And how am I doing on time? Got any minutes?
Just minutes.
Okay. So the kind of things that we've seen in Kansas ordinances are setbacks, which just describes the distance between the edge of the project and your neighbors, safety requirements for fire, for training for the local fire department, donations to the local fire department to make sure they have the tools necessary if there were ever to be any kind of a problem. Vegetative screening, which simply describes the planting of trees that would obscure at the tree line the project from various roads nearby. And then last but not least, the recycling of panels, so that as panels age out over the course of, in the middle of the life of the project, they are recycled, taken off-site, and not left to be there. There's a lot more to discuss if you guys have further questions, and I'm sure Aaron will be more fulsome than I was, but thank you very much for the opportunity to address your question. Thank you.
Aaron.
Hi everyone, my name is Erin Lynch. I work for a company called One Energy Renewables. I appreciate you guys inviting me to speak here today about the project that we're also considering doing here in Cherokee County. So before I start about that, I want to sort of just give an intro to our company, who we are, and why this is a good place for a project. So our company is headquartered in Washington State. We have projects all across the nation, many in the upper Midwest, Wisconsin, Illinois, Minnesota. I work in our Denver office, and we have other projects that I'm the manager on developing across the western United States, including Colorado, Kansas, Washington, and Oregon. So we've seen a lot of different projects in a lot of different environments, lots of different landowners, lots of different communities. And I know that every community is different. Every community has different concerns. So I'm excited to hear your questions today and hear about your concerns. The project that we're working on here in the county is very new. A solar project, from our conception of the idea to the time that it's plugged in, takes us about 5 to 6 years to develop. So right now when I talk about a project, I'm thinking about an idea. We don't have plans yet. We don't know exactly where it's going to be yet. We don't know how big it's going to be yet. The stage that we're at right now is very early. So when we start a project, the first thing that we look for, as the folks from Clearway talked about, is somewhere to plug it in. We need infrastructure nearby. There's great infrastructure in Cherokee County, as they talked about. We need good land. Flat is what that means to us. Flat and sunny. Not a lot of water features, things like that. Somewhere we can build. But the third and most important part is that we need a willing partner. We need a landowner that wants to do the project with us. We can't do this project without the support of our partners and our landowners. And we think that we provide them a good business deal to diversify their holdings and their business. So once we find that partner, and we have found some partners here in Cherokee County that are interested in working with us, we start doing what we call due diligence. So we're looking for any problems that might arise that would preclude us from building that project. That could be something like an endangered salamander that lives only on this land. We wouldn't want to build a project there. It could be an ancient burial ground. We wouldn't want to disturb those resources. So we're doing due diligence right now, is what we call it. For Cherokee County, for some of the land that we're on, our earliest phase due diligence is looking for mine tailings, looking for unmapped underground mines. So that's one of the issues here in Cherokee County that we've not really encountered before elsewhere. So it's something that's new to us, and we're learning as we go. Essentially, that's all we've done so far. I know there's been some talk about us sneaking around the county, trying to do business under your noses. We're not. We're here. We want to share with you what we found. Luckily for this project, we haven't found anything yet that tells us that it's technically not possible. So we're still looking. Where we're looking right now is outside of Baxter Springs. We're sort of southwest of Baxter Springs. We have about 1,000 acres that we're looking to build. But we don't know exactly what size it's going to be yet because we haven't finished the studies yet with the utility. So once we know what size it is, we'll let you know. We'll bring some plans, we'll make some layouts, make some designs. So that's our next step. We're going to be talking to the utility. We're going to be doing a little bit more due diligence. We're going to be making some designs, and hopefully soon we'll move into permitting. And when I say soon, I mean 3 years, something like that. And we want you guys to have a code. As I've said to your commissioners several times, having a clear code is really helpful for us. It tells us what you value, what you need from us to make sure that we're going to be a good neighbor. The folks from Clearway mentioned some of the code suggestions they have. I would echo those. Some reasonable setbacks from roads, some nice tree lines to hide the solar panels from view of neighbors, avoidance of waterways, other things like that. We support that. Decommissioning, we support that. And I think sort of the last thing that I want to say is that bringing the solar to the county isn't just a burden. I would argue that it actually provides some benefits to the county. The landowner that we're working with asked me to look into your tax code, and some of you may have heard that there is a 10-year tax abatement for solar, and that's true. So we would be expecting, with that tax abatement, up to $50 to $60 million of tax money across the life of the project, which would be 35 years or so. If we decided to do a pilot as well, we would, which is a payment in lieu of taxes, we could spread that more evenly across the time period of the life. So the tax money would go to the county, they could choose what to do with it, and the solar farm essentially requires no services, no sewers, no water, no police. It's low impact, and it would provide more energy for additional development in their county. So I've been told that I'm out of time, I went a little over, so my apologies, but thank you for listening.
Thank both of you for sharing the information. Maddie Crossman, I can come to you, you can come to us, matters not. If you guys have a question tonight, don't necessarily expect an answer. We're still doing a lot of investigations, a lot of research, trying to find out answers. You can, I call it the Google too, but you can get on there and find either side of the thing all you want. So if you have a question, if nothing else, give us some time to research it to get back with you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Maddie Crossland. I appreciate the opportunity to voice my strong opposition tonight for the development of utility-scale solar in the farms in Cherokee County. As a near lifelong resident of this county and nearby landowner, my list of concerns is long, but what I wanted to utilize my time to speak on tonight is the lesser understood and outright disgusting business practices of companies like Clearway and the other young lady who spoke tonight. Uses bait to deceive landowners and the surrounding residents. Professionally, I'm a real estate developer. I've negotiated thousands of leases, most of which are with some of the largest companies in our country. I'm no stranger to a bad lease. I deal with them every day. Clearway and companies like Clearway are intent on preying upon unsuspecting residents who have been promised immense amounts of money with no downsides. Sounds great, right? Well, in the words of my dad, if a deal sounds like it's too good to be true, it must be a really bad deal. These leases are a shell game, full of deceptive language that are capable of financially crippling landowners and will ultimately leave the county taxpayers hanging for the bill, in my opinion. So let's talk about those business terms. Rent payment. Actually, Clearway and other companies are only responsible for making rent payments under these leases if they're generating electricity at specified thresholds. Panels obsolete and no one's repairing them, no rent's paid. Panels not generating electricity at specified rate, no rent's paid. Taxes. These leases remove thousands of acres from the property tax rolls thanks to the 10-year property tax abatement and other subsidies that Clearway secured. These giant energy corporations have set up the shell game so their subsidies never expire. These properties will never come back on our tax rolls. They will just apply to extend them again and again and again. Eminent domain. While Clearway cannot take land by eminent domain, the Southwest Power Pool and the KCC can. The company only makes money off of selling power they generate. They just said that. To do that, the new transmission lines will have to be constructed, and thanks to the KCC and the Southwest Power Pool, they have free reign to build transmission lines in the most cost-effective ways they see fit, and that comes at the expense of your bills. They don't care about your land, your house, or your business, only about selling power to the highest bidder with no benefit to your electric bills. Removal and cleanup of the ground at the least expense. They just said that they care about removal, but it's a shell game. They offer to remove a few things, but have no obligation to remove underground infrastructure, leaving miles of wire, batteries, and other trash to rot in the ground. If this doesn't pollute our groundwater, wreak havoc, kill livestock, or we have a battery explode, even better, if the landowner is unhappy with their cleanup efforts, Clearway gives themselves the rights to just walk away. They hide this in the very complicated lease terms in these deals. Property liens. When the development begins, both the lease and a loan will be recorded as a lien holder against your property. Your land is no longer your land. It's collateral for construction loans. Insurance. The risk and casualty insurance is the responsibility of the landowner. After speaking with our insurance broker, there are 2 insurance agencies in the country who write these policies, all of which are extremely expensive. Are you as a landowner going to be able to maintain those premiums that continue to rise year after year? Here's the terrible scenario that's played out across the country time and time again. When construction of these energy farms are completed, Clearway reaps millions in tax incentives and subsidies. They transfer the lease to a shell LLC that has no assets. Because of rapidly evolving technology, these installed solar panels become obsolete in, say, 2 years. Panels begin to break from normal wear and tear, or the weather. We do have tornado and hailstorms around here. The shell LLC doesn't repair them because, again, the panels are obsolete. Eventually, the entire farm falls into disrepair and rent payments stop. Now, the landowners have been taken advantage of by a giant corporation, are now left with millions of dollars in cleanup and no legal action because the LLC declares bankruptcy. I hate that there are people in this county who have signed leases on false promises in hopes of helping their family prosper. Clearway is only here for profit, and we are here for life. Their claims of short-term construction jobs or short-term economic benefits to our county are nothing in the way of damages it will ultimately cause our land. I urge our county commission to stand strong against this and other similar developments that attempt to operate in the shadows of our beautiful county. You have the ability to fight back against these corporations. Please fight hard.
You're good. Okay. Roger.
So yes, I am one of the people who has signed the agreement. It was not an easy decision for me. They approached me, I was a no. And then I brought my kids into it. And I asked them, what do we do? And it was a decision of not just that I'm getting a bunch of money. It was a decision to my grandkids to farm with the money. But there's a lot of false things going around. I was not coerced into this. My lease is looked over by many lawyers in big cities. And I felt like I had a good lease with my company. And it wasn't just for me. The tax dollars that would come into this county, and we're estimating to be $5 to $1.5 million a year. I mean, it's huge for the schools. It's huge for the people in this county. It's not just me. It's not just the companies that are selling electricity. The grid is a very, very hard thing to understand. But your electricity that's here today come in from out of this county. Burlington Nuclear Plant's going $85 million power line from there to right on the edge of Cherokee County. It costs a lot of money to bring electricity in here. And if solar's in our county, it'll be cheaper. Not to say your electric bill is going to be cheaper, but it will aid in the process of making your bill cheaper. Tax money. You just got to think about what's going on in this county. How many people in here complain about their taxes? And who in this room has a plan to bring in $500,000 to $1.5 million a year in tax money? we need the support that they're going to bring us. And that's where I kind of made my decision. It wasn't just personal. It was for the people in this county. I have a lot to say, but I'm good.
Alex.
I yield my time to Brett David Worsler.
Okay.
Get these on because my arms aren't long enough if they're not on. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Brett Worsler. For those of you who do know me, I'm sorry. I want to start by saying I am absolutely for property owners' rights. I've stood up before this commission, not this commission, but other commissions, and I fought for property owners' rights. But I'm also for being a good neighbor. I'm going to talk about some facts. A 2019 Wisconsin Public Service Commission study said there is a constant noise or humming sound that's generated by these solar farms. It's not loud, but it is deafening, meaning it's so constant that it just drives you crazy. In Brooks County, Georgia, solar farms moved in and took over peanut and cotton farms. Now, the constant hum is mind-altering, and the issue of adjacent runoff to farms is a constant issue. That's a quote by Danny Sapp, a farmer there. Brooks County had no zoning when several thousand acres were gobbled up by companies like the ones here in Cherokee County and put into industrial solar farms within a few hundred feet of residents. Now the residents are fed up. They're seeking what they can do, but because regulations weren't set before they moved in, there is little and late and nothing. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Fighting J Solar Farm in Fort Bend County, Texas. On March 15th of this year, they had 14,000 panels destroyed by a huge hailstorm. The damage is in the billions of dollars. They're struggling with who's going to pay for the cleanup. Now, the residents are also struggling with the EPA. You know what? I can't remember this quote exactly, but Ronald Reagan said something to the effect of, "Never be more scared than when the government says we're here and we're here to help." The EPA should be there helping those folks, but they're not. They're not getting answers. We're not seeing lots of coverage of this, but go on your, what do you call it? Google tube and look up Fighting J Solar Farm, and you'll see what's going on. Ask the citizens of East Palestine, Ohio, how things went when there was a huge train derailment and chemicals were spilled. Ask them if the EPA came in and the government came in and helped them when their lives were disrupted. The solar industry is losing $2.5 billion annually due to equipment underperformance, and that is a statement not from me, but from a trade publication called the Renewable Energy World in their 3/26 of 2024 publication. This is a pro-wind, pro-solar publication. They went on to say, at the current rate, if things do not change, this is unsustainable. Wow. The very people who are pro-wind and pro-solar are saying that it's unsustainable at the current rate of loss. This is my contract that Clearway offered to me. And ladies and gentlemen, I had the opportunity to make millions of dollars just like Roger, just like Doc Britz, and just like some other people. And I looked at this and I wrote down the pros and cons. I made a column, pros on one side, cons. That's how I make every big decision in my life. I write down the pros and the cons. And ladies and gentlemen, the only thing in the pros column was the dollar sign. The cons and what I felt like I would do to the land that God gave me to be a good steward of, and what I would do to my neighbors. But more importantly, what I would do. Roger talked about his children. I don't want to saddle my children with billions of dollars worth of debt on something that's not feasible. On page 12, paragraph 13.2, my contract says exactly what Mattie Mae said. It says that they have a year to clean up their accoutrements. During the time they're cleaning up their accoutrements, they don't have to pay me anything. They just have that year to get the stuff off my land. But then if we don't get the stuff off your land, you have the right to salvage it. Well, I don't want their junk, and I don't want to have to salvage it. I don't want to have to figure out how to get the lead and the cadmium, telluride, and the silicon, and all that stuff off my land. I don't want that. I don't want that for my children, and I don't want that for my children's children. And I see you guys over there smirking and smiling, and you're going to get up and you're going to say, oh, we're not using any cadmium telluride, we're not this, we're not that. But you know what? It's words. When you ask them to put it in writing, you can look at the 50-some page one-sided contract here that I hold in my hand. And there'll be huge amounts that are highlighted. These are things that me and my attorney said, holy cow, this is one-sided and will never benefit you, Brett Worsler. It will only benefit them and their ability to get out of it. You know, the Florida State University Go Solar Study. Now, this is the Go Solar Study by Florida State University, said that commercial solar should not be built closer than 3 kilometers or 1.86 miles from residents. That's the Go Solar Study. That's a study to get us to go solar. Commercial solar. That's what this is, folks. This is not putting a few solar panels on your house. This is large-scale commercial industrial solar, 1.86 miles. Typically, it is recommended that no one, this is on the same study, no one live within 500 meters or 1,640 feet from any large-scale commercial solar farm. The WHO. Now, have any of you heard of the World Health Organization? Yeah. Pretty liberal bunch, I would say. Not very conservative, I would say. The WHO says that no one should live within 1.2 miles for residential. They also say that the minimum safe distance from a commercial solar farm is 500 meters or 1,640 feet. There we see that same number again. Over a quarter of a mile for sure. There's also a constant 45 decibel hum in the background. This is the noise created by inverters, transformers, and cooling fans. Hum. Non-stop. Non-stop, folks. I see you smirking and smiling. You're going to say you have quiet solar. But everyone who lives by a 345, a big overhead power line, will tell you that on a morning, whenever the dew's heavy and the air ain't light, that it gets ugly. Natural wildlife habitat will be disturbed. You know, farming and ranching is one of God's intended highest uses for solar energy. We take the power from the sun and we convert it into the food that feeds the world. I would argue that this is not green energy, ladies and gentlemen. This is greed energy. Over the next decade, we will shoulder future generations with somewhere between $424 billion and $1 trillion worth of debt above what solar will produce. I'm not the smartest businessman in this room. I see a lot of businessmen in this room that are smarter than me. But when you have an investment that is only slated to last 20 to 25 years, and the payback on it is 100 years, then that's a bad investment. It's easy for people to say anything if they want to get support. But I have the contract. I'm sick and tired of people who live in gated communities, spend my tax dollars, and tell me what I need to do. These people act like food comes from a vending machine, tax dollars grow on trees, that they can spend my tax dollars with no consideration of a real return on that investment. These people make rules with no regard to you and I. I am asking, my son yielded his time to me. My son yielded his time to me, which gave me 10.
Did you just say gay communities?
Gated.
Well,
communities.
there were so many other mean and hateful words. I was confused.
I am asking this commission to do what is in the best interest of those who are most affected. I am asking them to set forth regulations or statutes that protect the health and welfare of our citizens and our livestock, but more importantly, our way of life. I am asking that they look at the preponderance of the evidence and that they make an abundantly clear decision. If the WHO recommends 1.2 miles and no one lived within 500 meters, then I am asking them to, at bare minimum, do that to protect the citizens. Thank you, Corey.
Could you clarify how long they have to speak individually?
There's been a mix-up. There's been 5 and 3 minutes. We're giving 3. Everybody's been going over about a minute.
Can we also clarify the bringing down of the temperature of hateful dialogue in our county? Words like sneaking, words like smirking, that's not who we are. I think I am grown up. I'm asking that the group grow up in our county.
Nathan Wagner? Is Nathan in here? There.
Hello everybody, I'm Nathan Wagner. I'm a local realtor around here. I just found out about this meeting yesterday, so I don't have a whole lot of questions. I've been doing a whole lot of research. I would like to know, I'm asking the solar companies, the commission, what kind of contamination are we looking at? Just like the offsets you guys said, I need to know everything about that. There's some other questions that aren't coming to mind right now. I'm sure we can put those in writing. Those are the main things I'm worried about is contamination. I also want to know, is this going to hurt our property values in the future? Are our property values going to go up? Are we going to benefit from this electric? I know my electric bill's gone up. I know anyone in here that deals with Empire realizes it every year. And that's pretty much all I have to say. If I have extra time, anybody who's done their homework, they can have my extra time. Thank you.
Thank you. There again, guys, we're still doing a lot of research. I go home at night and sit in my chair and Google tube for a couple hours till midnight, and then I go to bed. And like I say, you can find all kinds of different information. We may not have the answer that you're looking for right at that point in time. We may not even have the best answer, but give us some time. We're going to work with the community, try to get you the information the best that we can, and you guys might find information that we need or might not find on our own. Neil Anderson.
You know, as I look at this right here and consider what's going on, the two things that come to my mind are the strip pits up here in the northwest part of the county. I think PNN's they made a lot of money off of that. But guess who gets to clean up the mess now? We do. The same thing happened, you know, in the southern part of our county. The lead and zinc mines were going great guns. They made a lot of money off of that. But who gets to clean up the mess? My concern, you know, would be again that the tax burden will end up coming back to the people of Cherokee County on that. We know that, I don't know, the length of the longevity of the solar panels, what is that estimated to be? About 8 or 10 years before they had to be replaced? Will they receive another 10-year abatement on those when they had to replace those? So overall, when will the county start to realize anything off of this? Approximately how many farms are going to benefit from this? 8 or 10, 12 landowners? How many people live in Cherokee County? 20,000, 22,000? Sound like a small percentage, you know, of the people that are going to really benefit off of this. So I just want you to think about that, you know. It seems rather selfish to think that a few can benefit while all will end up suffering in the long run. So that's just the consideration I wish that we would take.
My name is Tony Spieth, and I'm not a farmer or a big landowner. I don't have a lot of skin in the game, but I do have some statistics I would like to share. This is from Pew Research, and I just want people to know that if we don't do anything differently than what we're doing now, oil will end in 30 years, 2052, gas will end in 2060 and 40 years, and coal will end in 2090 and 70 years. We have solar, which is a renewable and is there always. So we have to think about not just ourselves, but our future. There was a study in 2006 that talked about nausea and headaches, but there were 25 peer-reviewed studies after that said there were not headaches. I want you to know that there's a huge contingency of billionaires who are fossil fuel owners who do not want solar and wind, and they will do whatever it takes to tell people that it's not good for them because it will hurt their pocketbook. It's important to hear all sides, and I wanted to share that with you. Whenever people cite something, I want them to ask, I want to ask them where they're citing, where they're getting their information from, because you can, like Corey said, you can get information on all sides. Is there anyone here that's getting paid to have a position? Because there are organizations who will pay you to say, I'm against it or I'm for it. I'm not making any money today, so I just want you to be sure about that. It's really important to understand that if we don't go forward and look at alternate ways of getting energy, that in the end we will really lose out in the long run. Coke and their people are doing evil that is done well and done through a lot of different people, and I want you to just be aware of that and not be manipulated. The other interesting thing is that Republicans have always said to me that I don't want big government in my house, in my yard, in my farm, but all of a sudden we're getting all these rules and regulations from government. So I guess you can't have it both ways. And I think a farmer or a landowner should be able to do what they need to do without hurting anyone else, absolutely. And that if they benefit, we all benefit. It's not just a few. So those are my questions and my thoughts. 2/3 of adults in America believe that we should be taking steps to become more carbon neutral. Fossil fuels, coal, oil, and natural gas release greenhouse gases, which cause the surface temperature of the earth to rise, and extreme weather. Are we not experiencing extreme weather? So fossil fuels emit harmful pollutants, sulfur dioxide, ozone, nitrogen oxide, causing health problems like asthma, bronchitis, and lung cancer. So it's in both ways. It's not just one way. Thank you very much.
Rosalie? There she goes.
That's an interesting question that I would like to know. But some of you live in actually in another state, but so you're not really affected by the solar panels that you run on the land. The woman said that there was with the solar claim that there's no need for water. However, according to the WHO, and you know what that is, the solar energy systems require a significant amount of water for cleaning and cooling. Can be as much as 20 gallons per megawatt hour. Where will this water come from? We're already having drought issues here in our county. So where would that be coming from? Another woman, I think it was Ms. Speeth, said that head injuries or the head problems is maybe kind of a moot point. Not quite right. Exposure to hazardous materials that the solar panels contain, cadmium, which is highly toxic to human and animals, as well as silicon and gallium, and those are in the panels. It's all throughout the literature, both of which are toxic to the environment, as well as nitrous oxide gas and PFCs, which all contribute to global warming, which the woman is quite concerned about. While the black surface of solar panels absorb most of the sunlight that reaches them, only a fraction, about 15% of that incoming energy, is actually converted to electricity. The rest is returned to the environment as heat, affecting our climate. So what that means is, concerned about global warming, you're causing global warming. According to Robert Fleischer, who is an aerospace engineer, solar panels are at best about 20% efficient. They absorb light and heat from the sun. The absorbed heat is radiated into the adjacent atmosphere, therefore solar farms will become thunderstorm and tornado incubators and magnets. They are dark and emit black body radiation. You can look it up. So solar panel farms only produce heat in the summer, and then the original land that they're installed on, but they also produce more cooling in the winter, thus exacerbating weather extremes. Mr. Fleischer concludes with this: there is no such thing as green energy. The science doesn't exist. We are being pushed to save the planet with a solution that are worse than the problems. Presently, according to the West Virginia companies, Clearway Energy is actually involved in litigation in the U.S. District Court of West Virginia. Plaintiffs assert that the operation was substantially and unreasonably affected wildlife, aesthetic nature, nuisance, and personal well-being. To that, I look at the medical problems, and what you see is flicker, acoustic noise pollution resulting in neurologically adverse effects to the human body. The young lady said, "Oh no, that doesn't affect humans." Yes, it does. Yes, it does. So, being a nurse, I've seen a lot of different neurological problems in my 45-year career. It does affect. So who's going to be responsible for that? As well as we all know here in Cherokee County, and in this area, we have a high incidence of cancer. There is an incredibly high incidence of cancer. If you don't believe me, you can look at the KU studies, the Children Mercy studies. We are constantly studied in this area for cancers. And you say, well, solar panels don't cause cancer, it's a catalyst. It is a catalyst for cancer, just like the things that we see in the soil and in the dirt and in the air that we breathe. And these people are going to come in and clear your land to put the solar panels on. Is that correct? Yes, it is. So where's that dirt going to go? Where's that dust going to go? Because when they put the big lines in a few years ago, our road was continually dusty. Our neighborhood was continually dusty. We lost a pony to dust pneumonia. It was horrible. So is that going to come back? You see the dust in the air now. You want more of that? You people that aren't going to live next to that are not going to be affected. But we will. Oh, that's somebody else's problem, not ours. I wish you'd think about that. In conclusion, Mr. Drager and company said it would bring in tax dollars. However, when the large power lines came in, they said the same thing. Oh, we're going to bring in a tremendous amount of tax dollars. They did not. The only way that we did get anything from those was because of my husband, John Locke. He held their feet to the fire, and they ended up paying $250,000 to the school, and that was it. But they told us, oh, you're going to have an incredible amount of tax dollars. Think about that.
Jason. You're passing? Bobby Mitchell. You want to meet you halfway?
That's Brett.
Hang on. You can do it.
I just want the commission to ask themselves, do you want this in your backyard? And if that answer is no, you need to ask these solar gurus if they have one of those in their backyard. If their answer is no, then there's your answer.
Kelly?
So, I do have land that would be affected by this. I was planning on building a house on that land, so I do have a dog in this hunt. I want to apologize to our guests in the county. This is not how everybody in the county talks and acts. Even when emotions get high, I don't like name calling. I don't like the use of emotional words. I had many phone calls from my neighbors to let me know about this meeting, and they told me that one of the county commissioners was making a lot of phone calls using the words that these companies were sneaking around. Whether they were sneaking around, I don't know, but those are the kind of words that create a lot of drama and a lot of misery. So I'm also wondering, why are we having this county meeting 3 weeks before a contentious election? Why are we not having handouts to come to a meeting with this much emotion? We don't have a handout. We don't have any information. We have a bunch of emotion. We have people that are in business that bring some good credentials with them. But I would have expected way more information from the county to create this much of a dramatic meeting. And I guess I'm just wondering, I have a lot of questions now about whether I want this near my land, but I really don't have any information, but I have a lot of mean talking. I have a lot of scared people, which seems to me might have gotten started somewhere. And so, what are we doing here tonight? When are we going to get more information? And what do other counties in the country that have been in this situation do to handle these kinds of things that come up? Do they get more information before causing all of this? This seems like the perfect setting to pit neighbor against neighbor. And so, my question is, when does the county give us some information instead of fear? When does the county help us make good, professional, smart decisions based on information that's not fear-mongering and name-calling? And the only thing I've heard tonight is fear-mongering and not too much more. I still don't have any more information than I came with here tonight. But I do know that there's been a lot of phone calls and a lot of unprofessional behavior.
Thank you. I'll address just a little bit of that. So, I won't use the word sneaking around.
It's been used a lot.
Okay, but there's been signed contracts within this county for maybe a couple of years now.
Then why weren't you addressing it back then?
We didn't know anything about it until just a month or so ago. So that's how the commission got informed.
That's
There
not
was already signed contracts within the county. The
That's
commissioners
not what
didn't know
I've
anything
heard.
about
That's not what I've heard.
it. Well, I can promise you that's what's happening.
I've heard there were phone calls made and the county commissioner said, we don't need to talk to them. We're not interested.
Anyway, so that's a fact.
That is a fact.
That's a fact.
Okay.
Uh,
So that's not sneaking around.
I didn't say sneak around, but anyway.
Okay.
The reason for this meeting tonight, we had a public hearing a couple of months ago. People did not feel that they got adequately informed about the meetings. We had some people come to a commission meeting.
Okay.
We set this meeting tonight just to get people's information. So it helps the commission answer questions. We're still doing research. Like I said at the beginning of the meeting, you can get on the computer and find information from both sides. It is really hard to get true and accurate information because I can find something negative and I can, on the opposite page, find something positive. So we're all still doing research. So this meeting is not to spread hate and discontent and division. It's to give the citizens of Cherokee County a chance to have their voices heard, pro, con, whatever, ask questions, make comments, so the board can move from here. Okay. Shelley Mitchell. Pass? Yeah. You're going to make me speak more. Yeah. James Andre. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Hi, my name is James Andre, and I've lived in Columbus for the last 8 years, going on 9 at this point. Most of you don't know me, and I keep to myself. I moved to the area from Colorado. Among other degrees, I have a Bachelor's of Science from Regis University, which is the Western Ivy. Those from Denver over there will know exactly what school that is. And I began my career in support of theoretical AI at IBM in 2009. After that, I moved to Ascent Solar Technologies Incorporated, where I supported the R&D department for the leading solar designers of copper, iridium, gallium selenide panels. These are also known as thin flex or SIG solar panels. And that contract was for NASA and U.S. military applications. Sorry, a bit nervous. I don't speak in public much anymore. I reported directly to the CFO of that company. I'm by no means anti-solar. Energy policy is not a place for emotion or action based on sentiment or instinct. We tend to throw around a lot of buzzwords that lead us to believe that one energy is cleaner than another, and that the reality is all energy production has an impact on the environment. One of the largest in relation to commercial solar is simple thermodynamics. Solar panels work by drawing solar radiation and dispelling heat, often getting to 65 degrees Celsius, 150 roughly. Whereas the energy drop-off point, where they're actually useful, ends at 35 degrees Celsius. Anything above that, these are dispelling heat directly into the ground system. This adversely affects the water tables beneath the panels. Massachusetts Agricultural, or the Massachusetts AG, Attorney General, sued the solar developers for violations of the Clean Water Act. The EPA has settled Clean Water Act violations from Alabama all the way to Idaho. Maine's EPA as well, as Virginia's Department of Environmental Quality has had to find multiple solar developments for erosion regulations. Indiana, 2 years after a solar farm was built, found drainage tiles were destroyed And their remedy was to fill the area with concrete dust. Not concrete, concrete dust. This forced the ponds nearby dry, as well as new drainage tiles, which could not be installed without removing the concrete to reclaim the land. Solar has its place, but farming is not it. Agrovoltaics is a form of farming solar. That does work. This uses a form of panel roughly 20 meters away from the actual farm. This allows you to have your energy and your farming, but it does affect the crops. I'm getting to the point. You can also use tube solar, thin flex, or ceramic baked. These have shown promising results. But ask yourself why you would want this. 85% of the cost of solar comes from the taxpayers. Electric companies are now asking for taxes to be added to your electric bill to pay for these usages. And it doesn't even provide the electricity to your community. This is going into a main line where 20% of the line loss happens. You're not even getting the 20% that the panels can produce in the first place to the line. I encourage solar for certain uses: agrivoltaics, drones, UAV, space, defense, supplemental power. If you want to go off grid, solar's great. But keep in mind, it should not be used in a destructive way. Most solar farms in the US are only 5 years old at this point. So we're already seeing a lot of issues with these ones that haven't been around that long. Do you want to be a guinea pig in this program? That's the real question.
Scott Hoffman, I think you did a great job, Steve.
Good evening. I am not a public speaker, but I care about the land. I raised my kids here. And the gentleman that just spoke, wow. That was a blessing from God. Thank you so much. Well, I have friends that have a lot of different questions, and some have been answered, a lot have not. And I'm not going to beat down on county officials. I want information from the people who want to bring us all these wonderful things. I want a pamphlet from them, not from the county officials. I want a pamphlet that shows the pros and the honest cons of this wonderful thing they're going to bring to our community. Who benefits from solar farms? How many jobs will be brought to our community? Are there other states who have realized profit gain from solar farms? And can we see the data? Bring me this information. It should have been brought tonight. We should already have it on a little piece of paper in front of us. Is BlackRock an investor in these companies? All the money you're going to receive is coming back from your tax dollars anyway. $53 billion the government has given solar companies this year, and in spite of that, they're losing money? Oh, wow. Another great boondoggle created by our government. Of course, we're not supposed to say anything. We're not supposed to be emotional. Well, I'm emotional, I'm sorry. I do have emotions. God gave them to me. Are these, I know where the Chinese are benefiting because that's where the solar panels are made. I don't know whether the Chinese involved in these investments too. Is there money in this? Are the Chinese going to start building around here too, their stuff? And how much lower will our utility bills be? They never have been yet. Since we were bought out, they've gone up. And home values, that's a big deal too. And the health of humans, animals, wildlife affected. So there are some questions different people have asked me to bring up. Thank you.
Not a public speaker either, but unfortunately I've had to speak in public too much. Nathan Stoller. You're going to pass. Kim Heffley.
I'll start by giving you some good news. I think I was third from the bottom. That means, folks, I think you're getting to the end of the list. I'm Kim Heffley. I'm the daughter of Jim and Lillian Heffley, Heffley Farms. My dad, Jim Heffley, was a graduate in agricultural education at Kansas State University. And he spent most of his life here working on soil conservation and ag ed. I grew up going to ag banquets with him and watching him win soil conservation awards and talking about ag research on our farm. And I'm pretty proud of that. And Dad passed last year, and the last year or so, he did two major things. He was still working on research, and he worked on a blight that was hitting our soybeans, and worked with Cargill to get that solved, because Kansas State didn't quite work on that. And he committed our farm to solar power. I'm telling you that because I think those of you who knew my dad or really appreciate the fact that those of us who care about our family farm would appreciate hearing from someone like that, and maybe not an out-of-state company. But my dad loved the farm, and he also believed that the right thing to do for us going forward was to produce solar energy. And that means something. And for a second, I want to talk to you about what it means for a fourth-generation farmer and owner to make that decision and what it means to us. There's been a lot of misinformation about what it means to produce solar on a farm. We did a lot of research. This is a hard decision. But no one who owns a farm for generations does that and believes it's going to going to destroy a farm that's going to have the kind of impact. I heard my uncle say he thought it would do the same thing that it was going to do doing coal production, where it excavated the land. We did a lot of research to say, at the end of this, our land would still be arable farmland. That tells you something, doesn't it? That you could, at the end, take your farm back, and my sons could farm it if they chose to. In many places, people raise sheep under these. What does that tell you about a solar panel if you could raise sheep underneath it? Does that change some of your conceptions about what those panels look like? Probably, yes. Yeah, it should, because they're not big, blaring things. We talked about community. I actually went out and looked at solar panel farms. Anyone else actually look at these? There's a lot of data being cited. Anyone actually go look at one of these things? Go take a look, stand there, hear them, look at them. I did. They're clean. They don't smell bad. Now, I will tell you, because I was raised with this, they're not as pretty as a Kansas wheat field. I don't know anything on earth that is. But I would live across from a solar panel farm way before I would a pig farm. or maybe a turkey farm with the wind turbines. Because I think they're a lot easier to live across than that. And I did think about my neighbors, because you know what? They're also generational farmers. And I care about them too. You know, that makes a difference to us here. So those are things we considered. And that's important to us. I would also tell you, just to answer a couple of questions, the tax on those panels is attached to each panel. So it doesn't matter what happens to Clearway or the other company, if they change hands. It's paid by panel. So that is $50 or $60 billion that comes into our county. It is a big deal, and we all do benefit from that. And we live in a county that could use some money. And our schools could use some money coming in. They're doing projects right now, and that's important. The main thing I would tell you, though, it's really hard to be a family farmer. And after my dad's passed, it's been hard to figure out how we keep the farm. And as we discuss this going forward, this is how we keep our farm. And we own this land, we lease it, and we sell solar power. And I'd like to pass my farm to my sons. And, you know, my mom got a check for about $1,800 for corn. And she said, how do I pay taxes and how do I, you know, da, da, da. Anyway, I said, you don't. And I'm going to be facing a decision that I sell my farm in my generation if I don't come up with ways to make revenue. And what you're seeing are some of the farmers who are deciding that we would rather do this than sell. And in one of the previous meetings, we had some dialogue about China owning a lot of farms in these surrounding counties. And the threat was, well, were these farms being sold to China? And the answer is no. No, we own our farms and we're leasing and selling solar. And the answer is, this is how we're not selling to China. This is how we're not selling our farms. And a lot of us want to keep our farm. And right now, a decision on the table is, you're making a decision if I get to keep my farm. I'd really like to keep my farm. And I'd like to help some other tax money come into our county.
Dale Scott.
I yield my time to Barry Magic, please.
Barry Magic. You good?
Gordon, can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
The last speaker, I don't know, or I knew her dad real well. I did soil conservation work on his farm as far as terracing and stuff. But I'm just wondering, does she live in our county? Where does she live? Where do you live, man?
Yeah, where do you live?
All right, I'll be very quick. Again, I want to emphasize how much, at least, we appreciate the opportunity to be able to have a dialogue. And what's been really interesting about this is that there are a number of questions that have been raised, incredibly fair, that have answers. I'd like to provide those answers to you. There are several questions that we will need to come back. I think it was Ms. Kaufman who spoke at the beginning, said that the taxes, that when a solar farm comes in, it removes land from the tax rolls. I want to be very clear, and at the end of the day, Kansas law exempts renewable projects for the first 10 years. But in every single renewable project in the state of Kansas, the county and the company has created what's called a contribution agreement so that the company pays taxes essentially during that time. And then after that, the land is taxed at essentially at almost an industrial level. It's currently being taxed at ag levels. So the net outcome for the county, it is impossible for the county not to realize more tax revenue when they do a contribution agreement and then simply tax a new renewable project. It is impossible for the county not to make more than to just have that same acreage in ag. That's a state law.
It is, but state law has, companies like yours have gone to our state and our counties and asked those same abatements to continue, and they've been.
So on that, and so for those of you that couldn't hear what she said companies have come in and sought to extend the abatement, which is actually this gentleman here with the whiter hair, I think, Neil, I thank you for your question, which was, how long do panels last? And so let's say it's a hailstorm, panels crack, and they get switched out, because we got to switch them out, because the only way we make money is by generating electricity. If the panels crack, it's not making any electricity, it's not making any money. So under Kansas law, there is a one-time exemption. So you cannot game the system and come in and say, we want at year 9 to switch out the panels and get another 10-year abatement. The Kansas, first of all, the Kansas law is clear on that. The Kansas Attorney General has already ruled on that. The Kansas Attorney General, I trust his judgment on this issue. So again, that is a knowable thing, and I'm very glad and appreciate the question. And thank you, Maddie, for bringing that up, because it is an interesting question that sometimes if you're not, spending your whole life on this, you might not know that answer. So hopefully that provides a little bit of comfort. And then I think, Maddie, one of the things you mentioned was that the landowner has the obligation for the insurance on the project. I'm not aware of that being an obligation. Well, I know I can speak for Clearway, and I'm sure I can speak for every other company. That is not actually how the contracts are structured. That is not actually accurate. The company has the insurance obligation. There's no way that a landowner would have the insurance obligation. It's not their project, it's our project. And so I just wanted to clarify that for folks. There was a question, like John came up and asked a question about Empire Utility and the bills that have been going out. We will happily come back and provide the county with analysis, but at least in our project's case, we have a conversation going with Empire, and the only reason that Empire would want to buy our project is it is cheaper than what is already in their mix. Every utility in the state has a mix of contracts that make up their power bill. They kind of stack on each other. So some of it may be 20 years old, and it's a fixed contract, some of it's a 5-year-old contract. So when a utility goes out, co-op, muni, they always seek the lowest cost power. So I hope this offers some assurance that if a project is contracted, which is the only way that a project gets built, there's been a lot of rhetoric tonight that sort of sounds like a company would come in and build a project sort of on spec and hope that somebody would take the power. That's not how this works. We get a contract with a utility, a muni, a co-op, or a large industrial or corporate user. That is the only way we can get financing for, say, a $500 million project. So once you have that power contract to sell the power, your obligation as the renewable company is to run your project. That's the only way this works. There's no walking away from the project in the middle, and the only way that those people buy the power is if it's cheaper than what else is in their existing supply stack. So, John, I hope that offers some comfort to your question about will this reduce your power bill over time. It will be cheaper than what's already in the supply stack. I'm not going to stand here and promise that it's going to cut your rates $20 a month, but it will be marginally cheaper than what you're already paying for. There are a number of other things, but I've been up here a little long, but there are answers to many of these questions. And we'll stand outside and answer any other questions you guys have at the end of the night. Thank you.
Ms. Virginia Cross.
Good evening. I feel a little strange being back in this auditorium again, but hey, I just flew across half of America tonight in California, and the one thing that I saw was a lot of desolate desert. They had very few solar fields on it. And what struck me was they come to our state, Kansas, Kansas, the breadbasket of America, we feed the world. We feed the world. Yet, and thank you for the farmers in this room that care about generational farming. And they come to our state and they make us believe that the only way to save our generational farms is to think solar is farming. So I run a little group, and it was a volunteer group. It was actually a grassroots group fighting a transmission line. And a lot of you know about it because it's the Wolf Creek Blackberry line. And I learned a lot in the last 4 years. I have over 5,000 members of this group. We are property owners. We fight eminent domain. We fight legislation that in the last 2 years have swayed against the average guy in this room, the average taxpayer, the hardworking guy, in favor of the big utility, global carbon cleaners. And perhaps I come back sometime and talk to you a little bit about what they mean by zero carbon. But tonight I'd like to tell you a little bit about landowners. You do have the right to do whatever you want with your land. I agree with 1,000%. But here's what you don't have the right to do, is that you have something on your land, and granted, it's your choice to lease. It's your choice to sign these leases that for 40 years you will not have a clear title on your land. Because your land will be locked up in this lease with solar on it. And as we found out in Allen County, we found out in Coffee County, those leases were being leveraged as assets against the loans that build these projects. And when those LLCs, I imagine this company is an LLC.
They have 37 LLCs, Virginia, they operate under Clearway does. Right now, 42 or 45.
And there is a reason LLCs, because they go bankrupt. They go bankrupt because they minimize the risk and they work under the umbrella of a bigger global footprint. And so when they go broke, as the farmers in Coffee County have received no lease payments and found out that their land was leveraged for loans on these projects. The other thing will be if these commissioners issue this special use grant, the money that's paid is not for property tax. The money paid is to maintain the roads, to maintain the damage that they do to our terrain and our environment. Everyone in this room, I know that you care about your land, you've been a good steward. We have conservation programs, we have hunting, we have fishing, we have trapping. We care about our environment and our habitat. We want to protect it, and we have for years. We're good stewards to the land. The one thing that they won't have control of is the hundreds of feeder lines and transmission lines that will run across your neighbor's land. And that is where I come in. I've seen it across all of Kansas, Dodge City to Hiawatha to Concordia. We're just being inundated. Kansas is under siege by the Federal Energy Regulation Commission. They want 10-mile wide corridors, 472 miles long, that will divide our state in half. So these transmission lines are random, one. The siting is not sustainable to any ratepayer in this room. And I'm sorry, I'm going a little long, but you need to understand that you, as a ratepayer, will pay the construction cost of these feeder lines, of these transmission lines. You will suffer the construction cost of these lines. They will end up on your bill because the federal government has a program called the Highway Byway. So whether you get energy off this line, and none of this energy is for Kansas, we are an energy net producer. We ship out 40% of our wind every day, yet our rates are increasing every day, and people on fixed incomes cannot afford that. I'm sorry, but you can't afford it, and it also offsets our base load energy. That's the reliable energy, not intermittent. So tonight,
She can have, I'm on the list, she can have my phone.
oh, wow, thank you so much, sir. So I have traveled probably 17,000 miles across the state, and I've attended hundreds and hundreds and countless meetings with landowners like you, because land is the only thing that secures our freedoms. We care about freedom of speech, we care about the Second Amendment. Your land is the only thing that protects you and protects your freedoms. And I realized that when my dad said they don't make any more land. And when it comes to the line in the sand, you better push hard, because that's all you got. And for them to walk into this state and tell landowners like you that you can't make it as a farmer because you're going to have to be solar. And these transmission lines are just transmission lines. They're special lines. They're called Q lines. Q lines are made to encourage green energy. That means if your neighbor has solar, there'll come a time where the cost becomes too great. You will suffer consequences from your neighbor peeling off the topsoil of his land, and you will have water runoff because these panels have to be cleaned. If they are not cleaned from dust from the surface of these panels, they don't carry the efficiency. They don't work. These panels are electrified 24/7. If they will have to have battery storage somewhere along the way. There's so many things wrong with solar. The footprint's so big. The batteries are made of small lithium batteries. And I traveled to Oklahoma because I had no idea that these lithium batteries, they can't be put out. I watched a fire, and so did people in Oklahoma watch a fire for over 30 days burn with the toxicity of what 9/11 burned with. That's what these lithium batteries burn with. You know, there's so many things wrong with the panels themselves. They're sourced from China. We have no material in America to make these panels. They source the material from China. They're manufactured in China. Our Army ammunition plant is stocked full of them. And these are violating companies. And these panels are built on the backs of slave labor of 8-year-old kids. They are Uyghur Muslims in China. And they live till they're about 16. They live in labor camps. They never see their parents. They're ripped away at a young age. And they're slaves. So now that those areas in China have been targeted, they can move their business to Indonesia. But they're still, nonetheless, made on the backs of slave labor. There is treaties against it. There are federal laws against it. I filed complaints. I turned these companies in. Yet no one has the courage to stand up for the smallest guy. And that is some kid in China that's ripped from their parents. And to me, that is a human rights crime. But to us, it should be a crime against humanity here as well. this is in open conversation to the public, which we haven't had because we don't find a lot of courage in Topeka. In Topeka, there's not a lot of oxygen there either for freedom. We're run over by lobbyists. We're owned by our own tax money that the federal government is loaning back to these companies. It's a Bernie Madoff type scheme funding these things on the backs of hardworking Americans like you. And that's why there's nothing in it for me except that I feel like you need informed. I feel like everyone in this room needs to be informed and do an informed decision. These contracts are lucrative. They leverage your land for 40 years, and if something happens, you'll see these LLCs disappear in the middle of the night, and the only one left to hold the bag is the landowner or the taxpayer, because you're going to clean it up. So high-risk insurance is a good thing for the landowner to carry. Have him carry high risk, because I'm getting ready to go to Florida to see our home, but I'm also getting ready to document the thousands and thousands of solar panels that are laying around from the floods, the tornadoes that ripped Florida apart. And guess what? There's going to be a lot of people that don't have energy because they offloaded their reliable energy for the intermittent drink. And it all sounds all fluffy and everything, but I think that the best thing we can do is work on a way how we save our farms, how we make taxes affordable, stop the compliance and stop the overrun of the federal government here in Kansas, and make Kansas great again.
Okay, that's everybody that was signed up. Is there anybody that was not signed up that would like to speak? This is your opportunity.
I don't necessarily want to speak, but I have some questions for you guys as well as the rest of us. The fact that it's going to be a 10-year tax abatement on the property that the solar companies own, but the farmer's still paying taxes on that land it's sitting on, correct?
But some we're still researching because we've been told that the companies will pay that tax. We've been told opposite. So that's why we're having these meetings. So everybody knows, 1st of September, this board decided to extend the moratorium for 1 year. So there's a moratorium in place until September 2025 to give this board, this community time to do research, ask questions, find out information, so we can all make a decision that's right for everybody. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Corey, I got a question. Can the landowner just go ahead and build this without worrying about all of us?
Can the landowner?
Can the landowner just say, go ahead and start the project, doesn't matter what our decision is? Is that legal or what?
We have a moratorium in place right now for a year.
So do you guys make the final decision if they can build it? Does anybody
Pretty much. I mean, in a roundabout way, yeah.
Okay. Majority of the people in here don't want a paper from me. They voted for you to make this decision. I think it's a pretty easy decision to make.
Well, it seems like that, if you don't mind. It seems like that. And I don't want to be, I can talk about nothing. I don't want to seem dramatic in this response, but if we don't take the right steps forward as a board, we've already heard the word lawsuit thrown around. Our county is not zoned. So if we don't take the correct steps to see our way through this, collect as much information as we can, do our due diligence, try to answer all the questions. The word lawsuit has been thrown around a lot. It's been thrown around by the solar companies, it's been thrown around by landowners, it's been thrown around by neighbors, and I don't think any of us want that, right? So if I'm doing my job, if the three of us are doing our job as a representative of the people, we would have voted for a ban already, a complete ban. Everybody, myself, I guess I should speak for myself. I'm a little nervous for the word lawsuit being thrown around, so I just would like to do my due diligence to make sure that we're doing all the things that we need to do on behalf of the taxpayers. It's a reality. I mean,
well, that's what needs to happen.
That's what we're trying to do.
Well, and I appreciate that.
Cannot any, I mean, it can't be put on a voting ballot for the people.
We looked at that, tried to get on this ballot, but there wasn't time. Probably
I mean, it can't have a special election ballot or anything like that.
It costs, the problem is the cost associated with it.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Jake Kennard. So I'm the county counselor for Cherokee County. My job is to give the board legal advice as we go through this process. I did look into the ballot option, the public vote option. The problem that you get into is getting that item to a ballot. The closest thing that I could find that suited the interest of the board at the time that I was looking at it was what's called an advisory ballot, right? So you can put an issue on the ballot, folks can vote on it, and it's not binding, it's just advisory to the commission. Kansas doesn't have a great option for ballot initiatives for legislative items. We all say we're a democracy, but we're really not. We're a representative democracy. So we elect folks in legislative offices and executive offices and judicial offices in some situations to enact, enforce, and administer the law. So we've got our commissioners that are our legislative body. We elect them to do this for the people, right? So they're making these decisions. They should be taking public input. And when these commissioners don't do what the will of the people is, that's why we have elections every 4 years for them. So that's kind of a long answer to it, but the ballot initiative is not a great option for this in the research that I've done at this point. It's largely up to our commissioners. So that's why we're having these meetings, is to get public input on it. My advice to the board that I've said in public meeting, and I'll say again, is I think we have to pursue zoning. And that's not a ban on solar, that's not a ban on anything. But what that does is it gives the board some authority to control the development of Cherokee County, whether that be solar, whether that be wind, whether that be various agriculture projects. Anything that's commercial or industrial has to go through the county zoning process for approval, and if it's outside of the city limits. So that's been my advice to the board. I have to protect the county from lawsuits. I've talked with county councilors all over the state about what the correct process is to do it, how the different approaches that they've taken, and that's what we keep coming back to, is if the board wants to have any control over it at all, and how the county's developed, like I said, for anything, wind, solar, you name it, zoning is the option for that. I don't know if that answered questions, if there's anything else on that side of it that you want me to address.
Unless anybody else got another question.
I don't need a microphone. I was born and raised in this area, but I lived in Ohio for 20 years. I have zoning in Ohio. It didn't work. If I wanted to build a porch, I live in the country. If I wanted to build a porch on my back, that's my house. I had to go to and say, this is what I want. And they said, no, this area has to have an enclosed back porch. You can't have a wraparound. If I wanted to build this building on my property, I was in the country, it was zoned. No, this won't work because this area can only have A-type frame barn. We can't have a horse barn. I hope zoning works. But in the states I've lived in and the towns I've lived in, it doesn't.
If I can address that, man, there are different types of zoning. And ultimately, it's going to be up to this board or whatever 3 individuals are in these respective positions when the time comes. But there are different levels of zoning. So Labette County recently zoned the entire county. It had 0 impact on residential properties or agricultural properties. Agricultural properties are typically exempted from zoning regulations by state law. Labette County specifically built that into their zoning code in Labette County in the event that state law changes. They have exempted residential properties. So in Labette County right now, despite the fact that the entire county is zoned, if you want to build a residential structure, you still have to do the floodplain permit and the septic permit. Those are the 2 permits that are required now. Here in Cherokee County, if you want to build in a rural area, Labette County is zoned, and they've got the exact same restrictions. It's no harder to go build a home or do something on your farm in Labette County with it being zoned than it is in Cherokee County right now. So ultimately, that's up to the board and the zoning board if they choose to go that route, on what level of zoning they do. But I do want to qualify by saying, I live in the country, and if you told me there was zoning in Cherokee County, I'd be up here with torches and pitchforks, not knowing what zoning was, and there were different levels of it. So I understand your concern.
Sir, I have one question. Does zoning keep the Chinese from buying Kansas land?
That's a state level.
Zoning doesn't have any impact on who is purchasing land, per se. It's the development of the land that matters. So, I guess my short answer to your question is no. Zoning would have no impact on who purchases the land, be it a Chinese organization or... What's that?
You can't buy land in Arkansas.
That's probably via some state statute. Yeah, that's probably done at the state level.
Thanks, Jake. Jason?
Lawsuit on this. So if stuff goes bad and there is, say, harmful stuff that comes up later on.
Give him the mic, Corey. You can't hear him back here.
Lori had said lawsuits was offered at, what if something goes bad in this? Who is going to be responsible? Where would the lawsuits fall if, say, my land got contaminated? Is it solar companies? Is the county going to be responsible? I am concerned that who's going to be responsible if anything goes bad. I'm going to be totally surrounded by it, so if I'm inundated by all the bad things, where's the responsibility to take care of me and my property and my family?
I don't know. You can shake your head yes or no, but my first thought is anything that would leave that leased property is going to be your responsibility, correct? Pretty much.
But if this comes to business, here's the next thing. I'm just asking a question. I mean, am I going to sue the county? Is the county going to have lots of lawsuits from the damnation? Or is everybody going to have lawsuits? That's one of my main concerns.
And that's more stuff that we're trying to iron out and figure out.
Yeah, and I understand. I'm curious for the county's sake too. I mean, if the county has 50 lawsuits because all this stuff leaked on somebody's farm or whatever, is the county going to be able to afford to take this loss if we have this? I mean, I know they're threatening lawsuits, but what could happen on the other side of the lawsuit?
Anybody else?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
So I'll start with one. Are we able to put this to a vote? Is that a yes or no?
Put it to a vote.
I know you mentioned some costs associated to that.
It's not binding.
It's not binding, okay. Well, that answers for the rest, further questions.
This is Nathan. We talked earlier about devaluing property.
I can't hear you.
Are you the one that asked the question about devaluation of property?
Yes.
Okay. I was in real estate 41 years myself. That has been very important to me. And I'll reiterate again and again and again what Corey said early on, that you can get as much information, more than you can ever want, and you're going to see on both sides. But we've all spent, I know, dozens and dozens and dozens of hours researching and continue to. But one of the things I'm looking more for now is not so much what that information says, but what is the source? What are their credentials? And one study I read on that was, I'll say right off, it was purchased by a solar company. That's not unusual, because a lot of times when they go into a community, they're tasked with doing different studies for the benefit of the governing body or whatever. But I checked out the source of that study, and it was done by Cone Resnick. I was not familiar at all with that name, so I Googled them, probably spent 30 minutes just finding out about them. But though they're based in the United States, they're internationally known. It's a company that's over 100 years old. And, you talk about solar companies, these farms are relatively new, yet they studied in 4 different states, 7 solar farms. And you as a real estate agent know how very, very important it was for them to find 24 comp sales that joined the farms. They had 24 of those. They had 84 comp sales in a control study. And these are 4 different states, the farms, 4 entirely different markets. And each one of them, they said that there was no depreciation of values caused by solar farms. I know a lot of people aren't going to let fact interfere with your made-up opinion, but I just encourage everybody to do research. It's what we've been doing and will continue to do.
Are these solar farms going to be fed through our utility easements that are already set in place, or are they going to be trying to put easements or encumbrances on other people's property, neighboring properties?
Question was, is the feeds that come in and out of the solar farms, are they going to be using existing, or are they going to be looking for basically new right-of-ways for these farms? I can't answer that.
They've asked us to use it across our property ordinance, and they've asked us to get easement across their property. So yeah, they're trying to connect it all together.
So there's going to be new
Trying to
easements.
build them hard leases.
There are going to be new easements.
That's what
Yeah.
they said. Yes, sir.
If there are new easements, the solar company would work with the landowners to pay those easements. We're not here to force anybody to give us a land. There's no use eminent domain. Any new easements would be paid for. In a lot of cases, it's not necessary. Our project is looking to have 1 easement, the landowner, that includes our community out. So no eminent domain here. Not for solar, not for power lines. Everything out here.
Is that easement going to stay on that deed? Whereby if I have an easement with you, or you have an easement with me, I sell my property, that easement carries over on the deed, correct?
Correct. That's what
Many buyers would not want to buy a property that has an easement.
Some buyers may, some buyers may not.
Some buyers may, but you're going to cut your buyers.
And that's your option as well. To take that risk. That's your risk for that land.
Anybody else?
I want to address what Myra said directly to Myra. Myra, I sold real estate for you when I was selling real estate years ago. And you also know that in getting appraisals on property, that in the real estate business, you're pretty selective sometimes if you have a specific kind of property, who you choose to do that appraisal. Because you want to make sure that that appraiser is going to use comps that benefit you and what your end game was. If we had certain types of homes, we used certain types of appraisers that we knew would be on the high side, that would help our buyer secure lower interest rates or whatever. I'm not at all sitting here saying Myra is the most ethical real estate agent I ever did business with. Absolutely. If Myra Carlisle Fraser tells you something, she believes it absolutely to be true. But if an energy company is paying for the data, the company that they're doing that study for is going to make sure, Sally Davis, am I lying or am I telling the truth? I'm telling the truth. That's what Sally Davis, a lot of you know Sally. They can pick and choose those comps, and you'll throw other comps into the trash basket because they don't fit your need. And that's the truth on appraisals. And so, like Corey said on Google too, you can find any information. You can find something as pro gets and something as con gets. I believe at the end of the day, you have to sit down yourself and write down what you believe the pros and cons. Be guided by your heart and your spirit and the information that you believe.
Brad, I agree with you totally. That's why the integrity of the company is ever so important. It's a 100-year-old company with a very high level of integrity. Google it.
Okay, Jim?
I know you guys have done a lot of research trying to be informed. How far do you have to go to find a solar farm?
They give him the mic. They're running the spiel out.
It'll be here, back here.
My statement was, how far do you have to go from Cherokee County to find a solar farm this big? Because I don't know of anything remotely close to us. And I say that because I hate to see us be the guinea pigs. I would like to see something like this put in an area at least 4 hours away from us and see what happens. I mean, all these questions are being asked and statements being made, but who knows until you are 10 years down the road into these leases and what happens with the companies, what happens with the ground, what happens in the long run. Do it no longer.
I think the closest one's Arkansas, seriously, and it's 800 acres. That's the closest one that I know of. There's one in Prosperity that's 12 or 14 acres. I just
There's
got
one
back
in Springfield that's 76 acres.
in Illinois.
How many?
Yeah.
76.
Comparable.
Spent some time down at Peoria, Arizona. They had some pretty large ones there. Just got back from Las Vegas. They had several out there around the dam. But other than that, no. There's none. Do I know?
Are they going to buy your house if you can't sell
In Indiana, there's
I promise.
20 houses surrounded on three sides by solar farms. This
You
does
see that
happen.
one?
Absolutely it does.
Yeah. All four?
All four sides.
Ready to move to 4 now?
No,
Let's
and you
try
wouldn't have
to-
bought that if we would have known it.
I'll even repeat it.
I said in Indiana, there is a property, there is a house that is surrounded on 3 sides by solar farms. He was asking you a question, would they put it next to a residential house? They would. They would also force you to sign a good neighborhood agreement, which would prevent you from talking about this as a solar application. These are things that happen in India specifically.
My name is Becky McDaniel. I'm with Real Pro. I actually own it. Been a realtor for 20 years. I'm going to tell you, you need to really think about this. There was a lot of discussion tonight that I didn't know anything about. But I will tell you that even as Nathan, Sally, Brett, I will tell you that it's hard enough to sell some of these properties, but when you have something like that next door, or you try to sell your property, you ask some agents from, over at Joplin, and I've sold properties that now in our MLS, if there's a solar panel on their house or their property, we have to mark that. And it becomes a problem even with a solar panel on your house or property. Now, if you've got a solar farm on a lot of property, oh, I can't even imagine selling that. I can't even imagine how that would feel as an owner wanting me to sell that. And we would have to have a lot of education and just to know that we could pass that on and feel good about it. And I'm sure that Sally and Nathan and everybody that has dealt with real estate, if Maddie's still here, anyway, it's just something to really consider. There's got to be a better way, or at least, like Jim said, not being a guinea pig. I mean, go down to the little cafe at Buffalo Ranch and look across, and there's a small solar farm field that I think Lori, I mentioned that to her, and she went down there, but it's on a smaller scale. So, our neighbor has one in his backyard, and God love him, I don't know him, but, it's ugly to me, but it's their problem, it's their situation. But if I have to sell that, and I've sold that house twice, it's probably Sally's client, but she'll have to try to sell. But I'm just saying, you need to think about it, because on those homes, just one solar panel creates a problem. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? We don't start to get late.
I'm just still confused on, does it take a bunch of water or not? And where is that water going from? I'm confused on the water part.
Does it take wire? Water.
And it said you have to clean those with water.
Clearwater says no. Aaron, what do you say?
No water.
No water.
How do you wash them?
We don't. You don't have water from the dirt from the creek? I went to the tractor pulls and my dog came and walked home with dirt and mud clumps on it from the tractor pulls. I don't have to clean it? I mean,
Well, cleaning.
There's just more information we've got to research and find out.
cold water from the thing, so something I know, you put it in the shop.
Well, and in all fairness, it's a technology, just like any other technology, that's probably progressing, probably day to day, so we don't know for sure. One more.
I have a question. If they're going to I'm good with that. And it's told to say the main contract buyers. So they said earlier that they would have to have the power sold before they build this. But they said that they would look for the major energy suppliers. If there are no takers between Heartland and Liberty, who else would be buying that power? Because if someone else buys that power, there's no way that's going to have a rate benefit to anyone in this area. Who would be those buyers other than the two utilities?
I don't know, Aaron, shake your head yes or no, I'll answer this right. Basically, they're trying to get it tied together. So there's multiple buyers within that group, and I dealing with this part. This power may be shipping to Scotland. Dallas, Houston, Tulsa.
Everyone that's generating power, whether it's natural gas, solar, wind, nuclear, whatever, everyone puts it onto the grid. And the grid is connected all over the eastern half of the country, essentially. There's three grids in the country. We're in the eastern one. There's an organization called the Southwest Power Pool that basically manages the flow onto and off of the grid. So anyone that works with the Southwest Power Pool could pay for this energy. It's like a commodity market, right? The electrons from this project or from any gas, nuclear, whatever project stay on the system nearby, but someone has to pay for it to plug in. So no matter what's produced, it's just like if you're selling cattle or you're selling corn, you're not selling this exact ear of corn. Someone somewhere is buying a certain quantity, you're putting a certain quantity in the pool. Same with electricity. You put a quantity in the pool, someone else pays for a quantity out of the pool. You're not tracking electrons across the system. It's a complicated question of physics, and I think electricity is confusing.
It's shocking.
I always want to talk about liens on properties. I mean, I'll be the smartest man in my contracts as there are to be no liens based on my property. I would never sign anything like that in front of many lawyers. And I just, I would never sign that. It's my property. I don't know what it is.
Last question, for now, I'll stay here all night. If you want to stay here all night, I'll visit with you all night, but I know some of you are giving me this.
So, not really a question, just a statement, pure fact. Realtors, Cameron, Becky, Hayden. Now that I know this as of Thursday, a lot of your homes are going to have to be, if we put them on the market and I've got a few on the market, then now you're going to say, hey, this could happen. What happens with could happen is 60th. I've sold places multiple times and said, the highway could come through here. Call the state. You call the state 3 times, 3 people, 3 answers. The buyer leaves, regardless. So now I have to go to my people that's selling and say, hey guys, now we got to disclose it could happen 1, 3, 5 years down the road. Let them know. Even the ones that I'm like, well, I don't know, the lines could come over here.
Anything could happen.
Yeah. We have to disclose that.
This is new information to us that we have to disclose to any client.
So who's responsible for the property values at this point?
Oh, I'm sure you are. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, just take a hit. It's fine.
Just real quick, honestly, thank all you guys for coming out here. This is a job that I don't even know how to describe it. I don't even know why I want you to do it, but here we are. I'm proud to do this job because I do it for you. Quick story. About 20 years ago, I had the opportunity to go to work for Caterpillar International, travel the entire world with Caterpillar, and anybody knows me knows that I bleed cat yellow. The only thing that kept me from doing that job was I couldn't leave here. Whatever you want to call Cherokee County, call it whatever you want, but it's ours. And I'm pretty proud of it. And I'm equally proud of all you guys coming out here tonight. At the end of the day, it's up to this board and whoever sits behind these chairs. It's a hard decision. It's been an extremely hard decision for me. That decision's not made up. Number one, I'm your voice. That's my job. I take that very seriously. It's from the people to the government, not the government to the people. But I also shouldn't be telling people what to do or not. That's a big struggle. And I don't care who you are, if you really think about it, you honestly say, that's a hard decision. And it is. But you put us here to do that. That's what will happen. We've got a year, well, 9.5 months to research. I'm proud of that board for taking that step. We just found out about these. Yeah, I'm gonna tell you, that disappointed me greatly when I found out that all these contracts have been signed. We didn't know anything about it. That's, to me, is a bad deal. We're gonna get past that, give this board time to consume, produce, evaluate all this information. We're gonna be talking to you guys, I'm sure, multiple times from now till whenever that decision is made. I have people call me weekly. Please call anytime. My phone rings at 11 o'clock at night. It's unreal, but I'll answer. But thank you sincerely from the bottom of my heart. You guys have anything you want to say? Like I said, I'll stay here all night. If you guys want to sit around and talk about it, I'll be here all night. But if you guys got anything you'd like to say?
I'd just like to add something that, just so you guys understand where the decisions lie with the commission and what a circus this can be. Just within the research that we have done, we have found setbacks that are 50 feet, and we have suggestions on from Go Solar and the World Health Organization and whatever, it's 500 meters. Where do you find a happy medium in there, right? So that's why we're holding these hearings, to get what kind of input you guys want as we decipher setbacks from 50 feet all the way to 500 meters. So it's our job to figure something out in between there. So there's a lot of information.
Thank you all.
Thank you.